Welcome to The Daily. It's Friday, April 29th with Greg Lawless. I'm Jason Seguini. We finally heard the suspension for Brian Mullan. It's 9 games on top of the 1 he gets for the red card, so 10 total. Greg, what are people saying about this?
Well, the Seattle Sounders have come out and they say this is a great result for the whole situation. Adrian Hanauer, the general manager and co-owner for the Sounders, actually putting out a release saying he's glad to see that the league is trying to make a statement about protecting some of the creative and attacking players in the league. On the other hand, of course, the Rapids putting out some statements saying that they don't agree with this. They feel that this was an unpremeditated event and that it happened in the run of play. Yes, it was a hard foul. Yes, it injured Zakuani, but they were comparing it, say, to Ricardo Clark's suspension, which is the same thing about 3 years ago, but a very different type of act.
All right, well, one last note on that. Brian Mullan is not going to appeal the suspension, so it will remain 10 games. Colorado will move on without him for a while. We're moving on to the weekend. It actually starts tonight. Houston Dynamo hosting DC United.
Yeah, and the big news for DC, Branko Boskovic not traveling down to Houston for this one. On the other side for Houston, Koke will make his debut, we think, for the Dynamo. That'll be really interesting. Also, I'm curious to see whether Pat Onstad, the former Houston Dynamo goalkeeper, maybe gets a start in the United goal.
Yeah, interesting story for Boskovic. He's been playing so well lately for DC United, really, outside of MLS games, and even maybe a little against the Red Bulls. So unfortunate for him that the injury is too much for him to go. Speaking of the Red Bulls hosting Kansas City in what should be a fairly high-scoring game, we think.
Well, I think in the preseason, everyone was looking back and seeing it was going to be Marquez versus Bravo in this one. Bravo injured, so he won't be there, but I think this will be a high-scoring affair. Obviously, that famous 4-3-3 that Sporting like to play is going to be under attack against a New York team that has put up 7 goals in their last 2 games. Rafa Marquez coming out yesterday and saying he thinks there are vulnerabilities in that formation from Kansas City, particularly with the space in the midfield, and the Red Bulls will try to take advantage of that.
Well, we mentioned the Mullen suspension before, obviously, for the tackle on Zakuani. Seattle Sounders moving on without Zakuani against Toronto FC, but it'll be very interesting to see, since it's a home game for Seattle, the response from the fans.
Yeah, and you have to imagine that they're going to be so behind the club, as they always are, but even more so in this one without Zakuani. On the other side, Toronto coming off of that 3-0 victory over Edmonton in the Neutralite Canadian Championship. Do they maybe have some confidence to start moving a little bit forward? And after all of the struggles they've had in the beginning part of the season, is this what they needed to get going?
Well, down the coast, Portland also has a game against another team trying to rebound, and that's for Real Salt Lake, coming off that Wednesday loss in Champions League. Has to be disheartening for them. How do they bounce back here?
Well, that's the question, Jason. Everyone is wondering, what will Real Salt Lake do in this match? And I think the real question is, what will Jason Kreis do? Who will he start, especially up top? Is Saborío going to get the start again with Espíndola up there? Or maybe does he make a total change? Does he put Alvarez and Paulo Jr. up there to just give everyone a little bit of a break and maybe get a little bit more life? Saborío has not been playing well. We know that. Espíndola missed several chances in the Champions League final. So does he go ahead and make some changes?
All right, a couple more games. Chivas USA hosting New England Revolution. This is interesting because Chivas, the team that passed on Benny Feilhaber, this is Benny coming home to Southern California.
Yeah, and you have to imagine that Feilhaber is going to be very motivated for this one. Of course, Chivas coming off of their first win of the season last week at San Jose, so they come home feeling pretty confident about this as well. I think this is a great matchup in this game. I think it's going to be one in the midfield, though. What sort of space will Feilhaber find? And then on the other side, what sort of space can they close down? Especially, I think Ben Zemansky is going to be very important for Chivas USA to help close down that space.
Also in the midfield for New England, we will probably see the MLS debut of Osman Dabo, who played in the U.S. Open Cup win over DC United. So Steve Nicol happy to get his team healthy these days. Final game on Sunday, FC Dallas hosting the LA Galaxy. David Beckham making the trip back from the royal wedding.
This is what they say. He had his top hat out during the celebrations, although I have yet to see him actually wear it. He maybe didn't want to muss up the hair out there where Prince William and Kate Middleton were getting married in London. But he did say he was going to get on his plane. He was going to be back in Dallas and ready for this game. We'll see what it does. We've seen him do this before. He did this a couple of years ago when he flew back after a qualifier or a match for England. Will the same result happen? In that game, he ended up getting injured. It's a very different situation. He wasn't actually playing 90 minutes on the day before the Dallas game.
90 minutes on the dance floor.
90 minutes on the dance floor, perhaps, but it should be a good game. On the other side, this is the first game for FC Dallas without David Ferreira, so be interesting to see what Schellas Hyman does in terms of the attack. Will Eric Avila get that start? Will Breck Shea be moved into the midfield to provide a little bit more oomph going forward?
All right. Well, Columbus and Philadelphia also hosting home games this weekend. We're wrapping it up. I want to remind everyone, Extra Time Radio yesterday, the Fandemonium podcast. We had a bunch of fans on talking about topics from all over American soccer, I guess. It was very interesting. Nick and I had a lot of fun. You can get that on iTunes or Buzzsprout. That's all for the Daily. Enjoy the weekend. We'll be back on Monday.